There is a space in my heart where I find the truth. I find me in you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. Breathe in and out. Slowly feel all that's around you. All that you feel, all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. Yeah, when we unite. Oh, we unite. Yeah, yeah, when we unite. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are welcome here. Love is welcome here. Peace is welcome here. You are welcome here.
You're my life, you're my breath, you're a smile, you're my guest. You're the earth, you're the sun, you're the grass, you are love. You're my hands, you're a bug, you're my eyes, you're a hug. You're the light in the dark, you're the spark, you are fun. You're my mom, you are water, you're the stars, you're my daughter. You're my friend till the end, you're my dreams, you're my father. You're the ants on the ground, the miracles that surround. I'm feeling it all around, the hemisphere in the clouds. You're my pain, you're my sorrow, you're my hope for tomorrow. You're the strength when I'm hollow, you're the path that I follow. You're the blessings that exist, the small things that are bliss. The gift to realize that everything
All
is a
that
gift.
I am, all that I see, all that I've been and all
is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all, for it all. Grateful for it all.
You're the blessings every time I try to count. You're the lessons that I learn every time I turn around. You're the water when I'm burned every time I think I found everything I'm looking for. You're the sign saying stop to take a bow and keep moving forward and start looking towards your heart. It'll open all the doors and only then you'll start to hear the world singing chorus with your mind and heart. Aligned in purpose, everything
All
will feel
that I
gorgeous.
am, all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all, for it all.
Every day I sit and pray cause what I have is more than I deserve or could ever imagine. How do I give back to all of this magic and spread the love so everybody can have it? Doesn't matter if I'm rich or poor, if I got a family or if I'm all alone. Bad things happen, I can just complain and moan. But there's a million things that I can be grateful for.
So I lift up my hands now, and I open my heart, and my gratitude goes out to everything near and far. All that I am,
Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I look deep down and feel all the blessings. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I'm grateful for it all. It's amazing. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I look deep down and feel all the blessings. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I'm grateful for it all. It's amazing. You're the blessings that exist, the small things that are bliss, the gift to realize that everything is a gift.
Wait, one more. This is for y'all.
All that I am.
All that I see.
All that I've been.
It's a blessing.
It's so amazing.
I am grateful.
I'd like to welcome everyone to this service today, and hope the song reminded us to be grateful in today's society with everything going on around us. You know, we have a lot of challenges and we're taking in a lot of energy, especially emotional energy, fear, and that's why we celebrate together, is that, you know, as our master teachers taught us, two or more in my name can pretty much accomplish anything, and that's what we hope that today's service will help you with, and the understanding of the allness within our source. So as always, let us open up in prayer. So if you feel so comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. And let us begin by just breathing in. And as I always say, breathe in. And as you let that breath out, let go of the worry of yesterday. And on your next breath, let's continue not to worry about tomorrow. Let that anxiety just flow out as you breathe out. And take a deep breath in, filling your lungs, filling your abdomen, and just hold it to remind you of this presence, and release. And as Reverend Ike always says, let's go ahead and go into the theater of our mind as we see ourselves surrounded in a white light or any color that makes you comfortable. And we know that light represents the allness, for we are in God and God in us. And we are its greatest expression. But to be an expression, we must express, and we must be that light for others. So let us continue to breathe into that light, and let us just affirm that I am open to the unfolding of my life. And just breathe in for a few moments while we affirm that to ourselves silently. And again, I am open to the unfolding of my life. I am open to the unfolding of my life. I am open to the unfolding of my life. And we know that unfolding comes from that small, still voice of spirit that flows through us. So let us release that mantra at this moment, and let us just continue in the silence as we listen in for that small voice. And as we come back to this moment, this time, let us affirm that we know we are constantly connected, that we can never be separated from that source, that we know that in any moment we can tap into our power of imagination and create the world around us. And as we continue to use that power of imagination, let us see the healing power that flows through each and every one of us for those people who are affected by COVID-19 at this time. And even if they're not affected by COVID-19, but just having their own health challenges, that they may see past the challenge and they may begin to heal from the inside out. Let us give strength and joy and see that going through all our first responders and all those who are on the front line right now, keeping us supplied with food and shelter and hospital and medical needs, and all those nurses and doctors who are doing their thing right now. Let's see that source just flowing through them and helping them through their time and their challenges, and being grateful for their time and efforts in keeping everyone else safe. Let us pray for the peace and the love in the people who have lost people in this time, that not only may the spirits of those who have transition well, but that their families be held in a loving hug of love and joy and peace. And in the end, let us all just be grateful Let's feel that gratitude energy just start glowing out of us and just spreading out throughout the world as we blanket the world in our minds with that gratitude and healing power and the love and the joy, and just knowing it's all in order, that though we don't see it right now, that we know that God is in everything. And that gratitude we feel is for us and for each person, and we share that energy of gratitude with each person. And we see not only the flow of energy from ourselves out, but the receiving of that energy for ourselves. Just take a few breaths and just feel it. Just feel that energy. And let us release this prayer into the universe, knowing that it's already done, because we are the creators. And we know it's done because we say it is, and so it is. And we affirm this with an amen. And as a special treat, I've gotten my daughter to go ahead and sing one of our songs right now. So let's sit back and enjoy, and feel free to sing along as loudly as you can in your own homes.
Where I am, God is. Where I stand, God is standing strong. Where I breathe, God is breathing life in and out and through me. As me, where I sing, God is. Where I dance, joy lifts my feet. Where I live, beauty's flowing free, in and out and through me. As me, where I doubt, God
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm grateful for my daughter for doing that, and she'll be back with another song after. And just a couple of quick announcements. As always, the 9 a.m. prayer is still going on, and it's a Zoom meeting, and I have a person who joins me every morning, and together we start our day great. And we've had some challenges on Zoom, yet we still keep moving, keep going. Every so often we have a drop in that also joins us. But again, being that it's Zoom, you can get it on your phone as you're taking a walk. Even if you're driving and can't close your eyes and just want to listen to it, again, these are things that you can do, and that's what technology has allowed us to do, is still be together with that. There's also other ideas that I'm thinking of that we can do while we're still here to truly build our ministry. I mean, I just completed my internship this week. Actually will be the last week sending in my last reports, and you hear the joy that we have through prayer and through all the other things that Unity offers. And I'd like to start seeing us participate more in it as a ministry, because that's how we grow and that's how we reach out to people. And this technology, I have to say, I'm grateful for, because it has reached people who normally don't come to our ministry because of time or jobs, or they just want somewhere that they can listen to. Again, we have just completed the 30 Days of Fearless Living. The booklet is still available through unity.org. And if you've missed any of the episodes, feel free to go back on our YouTube channel. It actually has its own playlist, and you can watch it from the beginning again, or you could actually just pick a topic that resonates with you. And I'm going to go ahead and start a video series on the 14 questions to a better outlook. And well, it's actually 14 questions to improving your outlook, and it's basically what I always talk about: perception. It could either be your power or your poison. And it's 14 questions that Silent Unity put together that allows you to contemplate every day on changing your outlook and seeing things differently. And each day I've put up day 0 with a little explanation of what my plan is, and then every day I will release one more, including the meme, as we call it on social media, will be on the top, where I'll read from that first, and then we'll go into the reading, and then we'll take a moment to just contemplate the question for ourselves. So join me there. Again, it'll be on the YouTube at no time. You can watch it whenever, whether it's at night if you want to go to sleep with it. As always, our ministry, it thrives with your help. So if you feel so moved to gift us, you can gift us through the website at the top right in the contribute button. There is now a PayPal button on our YouTube channel. So if you go to the channel for Unity of NEPA, up on the top right, there's a small P. That's the PayPal button. Click on it, and again, you can contribute that way. And as always, feel free to mail it in, because we can receive it there, and our office people will go ahead and take care of that. And I'm so grateful for them as well to keep things going at that end. And finally, next week I'll be back with the next chapter in the book, which is the divinity of man. So today we'll be talking about the allness of God, and next week the divinity of man. It kind of sounds like our 5 principles, principle 1 and principle 2. So I want you to pay attention. The metaphysics is what we call the theology of unity, and those who've ever taken the classes know it's 4 classes for all 4 sections. And what Eric Butterworth has done here, and we'll talk a little bit more about that during the lesson, is he's giving you the way to put it into action. So with that, let us go ahead and read our daily word for the day. And our daily word today is from Saturday, April 1st, 2017, and it's miracles. So our word for today is miracles. And our affirmation is, I am a miracle of life. Just say that to yourself. It just feels so powerful. I am a miracle of life. One more time, because I can't hear you. I am a miracle of life. Incredible occurrences are recognized as miracles. Life itself in all forms is a miracle. The unfathomable allness of God is eternally fulfilling a divine plan in ways that defy explanations. We are each a miracle, created and sustained by God. Despite how impossible a challenge may seem, I remind myself that I live in partnership with God. I raise my expectations to the divine realm in which all things are possible. There is no separation between the created and the Creator. Jesus spoke of this when he said, "The Father is in me, and I am in the Father. I am eager to contribute to whatever comes my way. I am a miracle of life. And from John 10, verse 38, believe the works so that you may know and understand that the Father is in me and I am in the Father. And again, another song that Alicia has graced us with today. Hey, good morning, everybody, and I'm glad you're here, and thought I'd have a little fun with the church background behind me. In these times, sometimes just having fun is a great way to get through things. So I want to thank Alicia for taking the time to record those songs for us, and grateful for the software and the things that I've been able to get done during this time. And as always, we hold you in the high watch no matter what you're experiencing at this time. But I'm really excited to get started with Practical Metaphysics by Reverend Eric Butterworth. It's no secret that I am a big fan of his work here in Unity. The Flow of Life, in the Flow of Life is one of his great books. The Universe is Calling, about affirmative prayer. Spiritual Economics, again, a book on prosperity, and each one of them is hard-hitting as he comes straight from the heart. And this one is no exception. I actually wanted to show the video of how the book came about. Mark Hicks, he's a licensed Unity teacher. I'll be honest with you, the knowledge he has, I swore he was, a minister or more. And he created a site, which I'll share with you later, where you could actually hear Reverend Butterworth speaking on this topic in his own voice. So look forward to that in this lesson. And if you got the book and started to read the chapter, there is just so much information that not only will change you if you let it, but it will challenge everything you've ever believed in if you came from a more fundamental religion background, as I did with Catholicism. If you've come from any other religious background, he challenges a lot. So I'm going to get right into the lesson because there's so much to talk about here that I have it highlighted all over my tablet, because we could spend hours on this, and we definitely don't want to do that today. But with that being said, the opening of the chapter is the most important one. Metaphysics is not to be studied, but practiced. We come into Unity knowing that we are focusing on practical Christianity, which means that we are studying that which our master teacher has done and has shown us and has asked us to go ahead and do more. And with that, we practice, or it's a practicum. Pretty much, we're given instructions, we're shown examples, and we are to mimic or duplicate it in our own lives. The Greek philosopher Zeno set a tone that he likes, the author says he loves, which is the most important part of learning is to unlearn our errors. And a lot of times we have things, we hear it all the time when people keep talking to us about, oh, well, that's the way it's always been done. Well, it wasn't serving you in the first place, so why would you hold on to that? If you're not getting what you want, and I love when people sit there and go, oh, my life is perfect, I'm happy the way it is, and I'm comfortable. But the part they don't let you into is that inner vocal point, their mind. And I've been there, trust me, my mind and we have conference calls all the time where I'm not satisfied with what's going on. And we may look like it's great and all that, but until we actually take action and talk about it. Metaphysics is basically a way of seeing life, a way of seeing the universe, a way of seeing spiritual thought. This is not to implication at all. We simply want to make a strong point that it is all too common to substitute intellectuality for actual practice. So again, we take a lot of these instructions and we like to throw it out. Well, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that, but did you put it into practice? I've fallen behind because I used to say I would never get on stage or any speaking, and this was prior to Unity, unless I've actually read the book, practiced it, failed at it, course corrected it, and got it so that I can tell people how I did it. Doesn't mean they're not going out to make their own mistakes afterwards, but if they're repeating my own mistakes, you'll know that doing the thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. One can become a student religion in the sense that he or she is well versed in religious teachings, learned in catechism, and be able to express the various prayers and know how to sit down and stand up in church. Boy, do I remember that from Catholic Church. Metaphysics is not of that nature. We are dealing with something that is to be practiced, therefore it must be practical. The author goes on to say, unfortunately, many of us enter into the study of metaphysics with the same intellectual fever that we do when we are studying mathematics or studying various religious teachings. We learn the codes, we learn the creeds, we learn the treatments, we learn the affirmations, feeling that this is all it's about. So we go into a class we practice it. I remember Reverend Ogan actually taught 3 of the 4 metaphysical classes I had to take for ministerial school. And I loved it because the homework at the end of each one was to pick one thing from that section and practice it for 21 days and report on it. And I remember my very first report because everything in that book challenged me. And the book I'm talking about is Heart-Centered Metaphysics by Paul Hasselbeck. And as we went through that, it was my first dive into the theology of unity, which comes from the metaphysical books. And I forgot what I picked, but I know at the end of it, I wrote it. And I remember he gave me an A and he wrote, "Welcome to chemicalization." And for those who don't know what chemicalization is, you can find more about that in Emily Cady's book. And we can talk about it if you have any questions on what exactly it is. But trust me, it is one of those where it says if you're going through hell, keep going, because it truly challenges everything you believe. So as we practice, we become examples. And I love that Emmett Fox talks about Jesus when he says, "By their fruit you shall know them." We are basically concerned with the demonstration, the fruits of the metaphysical system in terms of healthy mindset, in terms of greater health of body, greater peace of mind, greater prosperity in our affairs, greater love in our relationships, greater peace in our world. This is the proof. We expect to have that kind of proof, and it doesn't demonstrate itself, then forget the whole thing. I know it was Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, who wrote in one of his own talks that for him, truth is something that he could demonstrate, not something that he read and, okay, it's great, sounds nice, could work. No, it was something that he read, he looked, he was able to demonstrate it. And that's what makes this metaphysical practice important. Perhaps the best connotation is not beyond the physical, but between the levels of life. So a lot of times we hear that the literal translation of metaphysics is beyond the physical, beyond nature. But I love that the author pinpoints that sometimes when we hear the word beyond, we think, okay, well, here's our human experience. So obviously metaphysics must be way out there, way something, when in reality, metaphysics is a part of us. And it is part of the human experience. But we need to practice it and get into it and understand it. So here he writes, we think the metaphysics is not beyond the physical at all, but rather a perception of the higher dimension of the physical. Practical metaphysics is the persistent attempt to relate to the reality beyond appearance, but as a dimension of that experience. In other words, we always keep the concept of the whole. We do not go so far that we will lose sight of the whole experience. And we're talking about the allness of God. So this is a perfect example of that we look at the metaphysical and we think us, metaphysics, us, and the metaphysical practice. No. We are one. In the allness, we practice metaphysics, and it's part of this experience. It is part of our lifeline. All religious systems, all metaphysical systems, as we have said, are basically perceptions, a way of seeing things. This is, again, another whole lesson, but if you think about it, most religious beliefs came from someone's experience. And there is no such thing as right or wrong. There is no such thing as the right or wrong way. The important thing is that the experience that I am involved in right now, therefore, is right for me. So at that moment, there's a lot of movement going on in the New Age, back to fundamental Christianity, and good for them. If that's where their journey is taking them right now, something they need, that's great. And if that's what they feel. But what I love is that Eric Butterworth says it best, there is no right or wrong way. So this is why I love that saying by Ram Dass. It's like we're all just walking each other home. Now, obviously, Jesus himself would likely say, but it didn't start with me. He didn't create the laws. He didn't create the laws of mind action. He didn't create the consciousness of divine love. He discovered them as one of many who had discussed them. He himself said, so to speak, before Abraham, I am. So don't look to me, look to that which I am looking at. We know that the master teacher has also said, what I have done, you can do. This is the missing link in Christian religion. All that I have done, you can do too. Any great demonstration of law is repeatable. This is something that Wayne Dyer actually opened my eyes to. You know, I got to hearing his book, what was it? I know it's all about manifestation, and I wanted to learn more about it. And he read that passage and gave me the actual passage in John, and I was like, wait a minute, I spent how many years in Catholicism, Catholic school, Jesuit high school, and I never heard any of that. And that was an eye-opener for me. But a perfect example is exactly what the author said. Any demonstration of law is repeatable. Practical metaphysics deals with what I call repeatable Christ. That's from the author. We should be able to tap into that Christ nature. So again, therefore, it can be at any time by one who is in that consciousness. Jesus deals with a repeatable Christ. That is what we've involved in, a constant creative process as being in the Christ consciousness. That present at every point in time and space is much the same as Jesus himself saw it. So what I love here is he wants to remind you that, as we say, as the Christ did, we like to use the term master teacher, our brother in Christ. It doesn't matter the titles we give Jesus, but he was the greatest expression of allness. He was able to tell you that the Father and I are one. And he was able to repeat it. So I do quickly talk on religion, is where he talks about the fact is, if God is present everywhere, when we talk about allness, he talks about how religion actually means to bind. It is to bring together. It is an example of allness, oneness, togetherness. But a lot of times we take it more of a philosophy, and we talk about a God out there rather than a God inside of us and within us and through us and all around us. And I love this saying because quickly, you know, when we talk about that separate God, we hear how God is, you know, a godless place, you know, whether it's something moral that you don't believe in, or, you know, we talk about a godless place, but the author himself says it. He says, the fact is, if God is present in the church, God is also present in the theater and in the casino. God is present, period. God is omnipresence, everywhere present. So you don't go to church to get close to God. You go to church perhaps and hopefully to be challenged to dig within yourself to find the consciousness of the presence that is with you wherever you go, so that wherever you go, wherever you are, God is. We've heard that in song lyrics. When the author himself, Eric Butterworth, was the one who I learned that there is no right from wrong. That's a mental thought of duality. So when we judge another one based on our own insecurities, our own beliefs, and we say, well, that's a godless place, we are incorrect, because God is in everything. The God who made the world and everyone and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in shrines made by man. And we should emphasize that. We should think about that. God, who has made the world and everyone in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in shrines made by man. God does not live in the shrines made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all men life and breath and everything. Yet he is not far from each of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. And that's from Acts 17, 24 to 25 and verse 28. That's a fundamental realization, something that we would be well advised to read in church services. And I'll be honest with you, I've heard it, but not to that emphasis. We talk about God in allness in which I exist. So we've all heard the example of the drop containing the ocean. And of course, we pull the drop from the ocean. So it is within and without, throughout everything. God is a presence that's ever present and all present, Or to put it in the most complete sense, God is an allness in which I exist and you exist as an eachness. Now he uses the term eachness. You may hear individual expression. Either way, we each have our own individuality, our own gifts, as I like to say. But that does not separate us from being a part of God, being an expression of God, which is what we most hear. But the author also goes to stress that to call ourselves an expression means, the word express means to stand forth. So again, practical Christianity, practical metaphysics, we need to stand forth as an expression of God. And we'll talk more about that in the homework section of what we're going to do, and a little bit of affirmation as we do our meditation today. Make a great mental note of the word as. God expresses as me. So again, make a great mental note of that word as. God expresses as me. Otherwise, we tend to go back to an anthropomorphic relationship of God guiding me, directing me. God has his hands on my shoulder. God has the whole world in his hands and all these things. God's eyes, God's ears, God's mouth, God's feet. All these things which you find in the anthropomorphism that is expressed in the Old Testament of the Bible tells us something about the need of evolution, which we found more fulfillment in the New Testament. You see, we need to somehow transcend all of this and get realization of God as an allness in which I exist as an eachness. And when we talk about the large word of anthropomorphism, what we're talking about is that there was a saying I heard many years ago which says that man is so vain that God created man in his image and man created God in theirs. So we need to kind of let go of that image of a man in the sky, kind of like the Michelangelo paintings, and he talks about this in the book as well, but to begin to understand the presence and principle. He uses an example later in the book, which I love, where he talks about how 2 + 2 = 4, but 4 is already there. Doesn't matter if we thought the number 2, we're putting pen to ink to paper, and then start drawing the line. 4 has already been created. All that 2 + 2 does is tells us how we got there. He talks about, and Amro talks about, we need larger maps, and that was actually one of the talks that I did when Reverend Diane was still here, and that she's had assigned to me, talking about larger maps, because, and I'll read it in the author's terms, he said we need larger thought of God and a new insight of ourselves. And I want you to hear that. We need a larger thought of God and a new insight of ourselves. Our God is not great enough. That is why so many people were upset and concerned during the first years of the U.S. space program. They were concerned that maybe we would find the domain of God out there and on the other side of the moon. I'm not going to lie, as a kid, when I flew on a plane, and okay, I'll admit, once or twice as an adult, I would look out the window and just wonder, can I see heaven? Are we going through heaven? Is heaven really in these clouds? Because we all look up, and people who were in the space program who understood that the clouds were formed, the whole scientific lesson, that going past that must obviously be where heaven is. So back in the day, there was that concern. Again, we talk about that which evolves comes out of that which is involved. And I love that. To be evolved, to actually create an evolution within ourselves, we must become involved. It's not about, hey, I'm going to do some studying, I'm going to do this. And it's the practice. So if we're blaming people, or we're blaming God, or we're blaming the world for the things that are happening to us, are we truly being involved in ourselves? Are we truly doing the Christ work that we need to do to express ourselves? God, who created the heavens and earth using the first 7 days of creation in the first chapter of Genesis, the mind immediately runs to thoughts of a superhuman being, a giant Mr. Fix-It. When Genesis says, in the beginning, God, we tend to think of terms of time and space. In the beginning means where it all started, way back somewhere eons ago. So we, instead of thinking in times of, well, this was the beginning of it, there was nothingness. No, the author wants us to realize that the allness was there. We just became a part. We were expressed through the allness. When we talk about the beginning, allness, not the beginning void in the beginning. So again, we're putting aside that belief of in the beginning meant there was nothing. There was just a floating space, and somehow there was a guy in the sky who said, I'm bored. I'm going to go ahead and create a world. And on this world, I'm going to create animals and life and plants and water and night and day. And we need to get away from that and know that it is from this allness that was already present. This presence that we are birthed from. So again, to read it again, this is why we are saying in the beginning, allness, not the beginning void, but in the beginning, allness. All things have unfolded out of everything's potentials. That is what evolves, comes out of that which is involved. So again, that statement, that which evolves comes out of which is involved. That which evolves always comes out of that which is involved. The involution is infinite, which means the evolution is also infinite and eternal. The universe has no end in terms of time. There is no end because it has no beginning. More correctly, the beginning refers basically to the foundation, and the end refers to intention. So we think of the beginning and the end in terms of space-time. Sometimes starts, sometimes stops. In the beginning, again, does not refer to year zero. It refers to the philosopher would call the ground, the basis, and the fundamental principle. So again, the author is going to keep drilling this into your head, because every time we hear in the beginning, we think of line one, line across, line end. No, it is just in the allness. Wherever it started, wherever it came from, that's where it's at. In the beginning, God means the foundation, the principle, the process, the evolutionary creation, evolving itself into a creative expression. God now stands out or is expressed by this process, but did not come out of nothingness. So let's talk about ourselves. You are the expression of the creative process. This is so important because it helps us understand certain things about ourselves. It is the key to healing. It is the key to overcoming. It is the key to demonstration of prosperity. No matter what you need or desire, there is a counterpart. Allness is involved within you and within all things. I'm taking a prosperity class called Absolute Prosperity, and if you watch the weekly update on the video, I explained that this was something I wanted to bring to our unity because it's a stepping stone in practicing prosperity. But no matter whether it's absolute prosperity, whether it's prosperity plus, whether it's 4 T's, whether it's the 4 spiritual laws of prosperity, the one thing that they all stress is that it all begins with God. And then God is our source, and we need to move to truly accept that principle, is to truly move ourselves to a place where we're not thinking about something outside of ourselves, but we're thinking of that which flows in and through all of us. And it is when we tap into that presence, we tap into that allness, as the author puts it. You may not see yourself in a relationship to the allness, the wholeness, yet you are whether you know it or not. You are experienced the degree to which you know it. So if you see yourself in part, then you will have a partial experience. Even in the midst of that partial experience, which may be in terms of not enough money or not a good job or a poor relationship or physical difficulty or deformity, in every case, this is a partial expression of an experience of the expression of the wholeness of the allness. Even in the midst of that partial expression, there is a counterpart allness. They're the key to express, the key to spiritual healing. That is why I say often that there's an allness even within your illness. There is a whole of substance even within a feeling or experience of poverty. There is an allness because you live in a universe that is whole. We are told to be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am fulfilling expression of the allness of God. That I am whole, that I am complete, that there is a force, a process within me that's ever seeking to express itself, because that is what life is. And again, we love to use the word spirit a lot, and you hear it, and I use it, within spirit. And a lot of times we also get that confused because, especially me who came from Catholicism, we talk about the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. But spirit is truly just another name for the allness, the other name for the God. The whole of the infinite mind is present at the point of my mind. There is no point in asking God to give you an idea, because God doesn't have ideas. God is mind, and God doesn't give ideas. God is the allness of the infinite mind process, which is present in its entirety at every point in space, which means right here as your mind. So when people use the term like when spirit's ready, no, spirit's always ready. Spirit is not an idea. Spirit is not somebody sitting on the sideline going, hey, you, I've told you, let's do this. No, spirit is already there, is already within us. It is there, and that we just need to adhere to it. I think it was Ed Rabel who said that sin, another definition for sin is to disregard divine idea. So when we have that tapping, when we have that spiritual flow through us, when we start to see these divine ideas expressed through us, and we decide not to do it under the excuse of, well, I prayed on it. Well, did you pray within yourself to it, or did you come from a place of ego and fear? From Emily Cady's book, Lessons in Truth, she says, God is not a being with qualities or attributes, but he is the good itself coming into expression as life, love, power, wisdom, etc. He is the good itself coming into expression as life, love, power, and wisdom. In other words, and this again is shattering to some of us, God is not loving. God is a loving God. God is not loving, because the moment we talk about God is loving, we tend to see, again, the man. We get to see the anthropomorphic Michelangelo-like God sitting up in the clouds somewhere with his heart beaming out, saying, oh, I love you all down there so dearly as long as you're good, but I'm not going to love you very much if you don't go to church. I say God is not loving, God is love. See the difference. Meister Eckhart said, I don't thank God for loving me because he can't help himself. There is no way God can express anything other than love for you. After all, you are the expression of the infinite pressing itself out of you. If God is love, then you are love in potential. And you've heard this before. We must express. To be an expression, we must push through. God is pushing through us. The allness is pushing through us to express it into reality. Similarly, God is not wise, yet God is not. Similarly, God is not wise, yet God is not wise. God is the allness of wisdom, allness that is present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. So God is present where I am, right here, right now. God is not a healer. God isn't going to heal you of anything. God doesn't heal because God is the allness of life. Healing is experience of leaving the darkness and coming into the light, leaving the confusion of human consciousness and coming into the allness, which is always present. The allness of the infinite life is present even within the illness. So God is not a healer. He does not look down upon you and say, well, you're sick, but you're a good person and I like you very much, so I'm going to take this illness away from you. God doesn't take illness away from anything, nor does God put illness into anything, which bellies a lot of traditional religion thought. We talk about suffering as if it is God's will and this is my place to accept it. No, not at all. So we start to challenge ourselves in our belief of God. Reverend Ogan Holden, during one of his sermons, literally said, God does not care about you. And he talked about the emails and the talks that came afterwards, because it challenges you when you move into this place of practical metaphysics, because you are now setting aside that which was embedded into you from a child. I love to use the expression where we say when a child is born, he does not know his politics. He does not know what religion he is. He doesn't know what color or race or anything. He just knows, I want to be fed, cleaned, and let me sleep. But we as adults begin to instill our beliefs on them, and we hope as a child they start to grow, and we teach them enough that when they become adults, they can go out and make their own decisions in their own time. You are a whole eachness of that principle. I am an eachness within the allness of God, and the full power of the whole or the allness is present with every cell of the eachness. So when we come to ourselves and know that we are that individual expression, we know that we have come and learned. God is a sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. If you think of a sphere, you think of a ball. Eric Butterworth has repeated this over and over again. No matter where we are, no matter what it is, God is everywhere. So again, he repeats, what this means is that at any point in the universe is the heart of the universe. The whole universe is present at a point where you are. Where you are is the very heart of it, the center of it, not somewhere in the outer reaches. The whole universe is present as you, and you are the very center of it because it is centered at a point where you are. You can become what you really desire to be, not because of some divine intervention, not because of some newfangled metaphysical system that you're going to learn, not because someone puts his hands upon you and works some spiritual magic. You can do this because you're a divine potential. The Christ of you is always present within you with the allness of the infinite process expressing as you. This is the important principle by which you can deal with life. And again, we talk about the effects of your consciousness on everything we do. If you think of yourself as only human, then you're totally ruled out the idea of the divine process for which you're reality. And I love here, and I've highlighted it in red for this reason. I think a lot of folks have settled for less than their better selves, usually out of the conformity, usually out of the rationalization, usually out of the attitude of self-limitation. I'm going to do this one more time. I think a lot of folks have settled for less than their better selves, usually out of conformity, usually out of rationalization, usually out of the attitude of self-limitation. This is the way I am. This is not the way you are, but if you think it's the way you are, then that is the way you will be as far as you are concerned. We talk about it. We talk about the stinking thinking. We talk about you are the thinker who thinks the thought that makes the thing. When we change our consciousness through this practice, all things are possible. Perhaps not today, perhaps not tomorrow, because it takes us a while to wake up, but all things are possible. And as I said earlier, this may challenge you. You may be hearing this for the first time and saying, hey, they've taken my Lord away. Ralph Waldo Emerson says a beautiful thought that has always been inspiring to the author, where he says, when you're broken with God of tradition and ceased from the God of intellect, then God fires you with his presence. And we know many names, Kundalini rising, just that infinite thought and that expression of energy that comes through us. When we release that and that belief system and we begin to practice, when you stop dealing with, relating to, and pleading and supplicating with something, someone out there, and get involved in the realization of the wholeness of life, then suddenly you become immersed in the presence of God. Instead, you have a believing attitude that is based on the presence of God. Better to believe not in God, but believe from a consciousness of God. So let's quickly talk about the practice of the presence of God, where Brother Lawrence, a 17th century Carmelite monk, coined the phrase, the practice of the presence, many years ago. So I'm going to read exactly what the author has said on this. Practical metaphysics, or the practice of the presence of God, is relating all things to God's process. To the God process, and identifying a channel of the allness. It's getting ourselves in tune and working out of the consciousness. To practice the is to live. To practice the is to live constantly, as if to believe that the allness were present in all its totality at every point in space. That means it is present in you. It is present in every experience of life, every function of your body. That's the practice of the presence. So how do we practice the presence? So as always, we talk about the difference between a spiritual message and a lesson. We want you to take what you learned here today, what you heard here today, and if you bought the books, what you read in the books, and put it into practice. Again, that's why we call it practical metaphysics. We call it practical Christianity. It is not enough to show up and hang out and hey, and don't get me wrong, we love that you're here. And we love that you're listening to this video. We love when you come into the building. But if we're not inspiring you to get up, get out, and live this, so that it's not just a Sunday experience, but more of a life experience, to truly express that which creates you as the greatest expression of the allness, then we haven't done our jobs. But at the same note, we can only give you the tools. I can give you a hammer and you can stare at it all week and come back and bring me back the hammer next week. You need to use it. You need to find the nail. You need to find the project. You need to do something with it. And that's what we're doing here. So how do we practice the presence? The author gives us a little bit of homework. He says the whole of mind, the whole of infinite creativity is in you and expressing as you in all your plans, all your projects, all your relationships. Before you go into a relationship, before you go into the office, before you start off in the morning, walking down the street, before you can do anything quietly, quickly turn to yourself within and identify as an expression, an eachness within the allness that is God. You are the expression of the divine life. This is to get the most out of your experience. The whole of life is present in every part of your body as a healing process, sustaining you, blessing you, changing you, healing, renewing. If you have any kind of physical problem, take a moment to close your eyes and get very still. Certain phrases and metaphysical treatments may be helpful, but basically in the beginning, just be still and know allness. Forget about the limitations of the eachness. Forget about the thought of physical difficulty of the plan, of the pain, the confusion. Just let yourself quietly realize allness, wholeness, totality completely. The allness of the universe pressing itself out into the visibility, almost as if the light of focus that is centered right at the point where you are. Just get that vision and consciousness. So again, visualization. I shared with my Reiki teacher, that I was visualizing a distant healing, and I saw one of our symbols kind of permeate through his body for healing. And it's kind of the same thing when we think about it, as God is pressing through us, as we become expressions, as we become silent with ourselves, we allow that expression to come into reality. So with that, we look at doing exactly that. So if you have anything that you can practice this week, we're not asking you to do affirmations, we're not asking you to do anything, we're actually asking you to set that aside for a moment and just practice being still and in the allness. So if you're feeling ill this week, just stop and breathe into it and just be still and be quiet and just affirm the allness in us. If you're having financial problems, if you're having problems with your job or whatever business you're in, take a minute and breathe and just know you're in the allness. So we've gotten a lot of information. There's a lot more to read in the book. If you got the book, again, it's Practical Metaphysics by Eric Butterworth. And I did say that I would share the website with you. So I'm going to put it here on the bottom lower left here. And it's truthunity.net, and you're looking for Practical Metaphysics. And the beauty of it is that you're going to hear Eric Butterworth in his own words talk about what you read in the book or what we talked about today in a full lesson plan. And his entire book is there. So I've read the chapter, I've listened to it because I wanted to experience it. I started practicing it so I knew what it felt like, so I can bring it to you. So again, truthunity.net. So let's go ahead and go into meditation. So if you feel so comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. Let's just breathe. Let's just take a couple of breaths. I'm sure you've heard some things that may have challenged you. Just release it. Just breathe in and breathe out and let it go. Let us begin to just focus on that which we've learned. Let us just be still for a moment. Let's just get the feeling that what we've talked about so far is totally preparing us. We are empowered. We've empowered words and words and words and words. Words really are meaningless except that they direct us to consciousness, feeling, awareness. Let it all go now. Let the creative process come into a living experience right here where you are. Let us think about the first words of the Bible. In the beginning, God. We are simply just saying, in the beginning, allness. At the foundation of you, your life, your experience, is the wholeness of the universal process expressing itself as you. Just think of yourself for a moment as being the central point of focus of light. Let's focus that light is in sharp focus and you'll never lose it. You are a point of light in the infinite light of God. You are an expression of love in the limitless love of the infinite. You are an expression of wholeness and health and the activity of the allness of healing life. You are a flow of substance within all sufficiency and infinite supply, and this flowing pours through you and feels good. Don't let yourself wonder why. Don't question who made God. Don't think of terms of what was there before. There was nothing. Let all of this human thought go. Just feel your oneness with the allness of the infinite. In the beginning, allness. So we begin, not so much a beginning in time, although it can be that too, but that it begins here in terms of a principle that is realized here. In the beginning, allness. Thinking in terms of what lies before you, the work you'll be involved in tomorrow, the physical experience, even the diagnosis and the prognosis of doctors who have judged your physical form. In every case, in the beginning, allness. 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 Remember, whenever you are, the allness of God is present. And the allness of God is present because you are present. And you are always, and in all ways, an eachness within the allness of that God. Let us just breathe that in. Just take a moment in that silence to hear that small, still voice that may speak back to you. And let us release that meditation. And if you did not hear a small, still voice, that's okay. Just as the author said, stay in that allness no matter what you're going through. And realize that we are that eachness in the allness. And that's the most important realization here. And let us affirm that we know it because it is so, and we say it is, and so it is. And we affirm this with an amen and an amen. I hope the lesson was enjoyable for you and you got something out of it. And I hope you really take it to heart that we are using practical metaphysics. It's not just enough to know it, but it is actually practicing it that makes it good. So one of the laws of metaphysics is the law of giving and receiving. So if at this time you feel so moved, then as always, you can give through our website, through PayPal, through our YouTube channel, depending on where you're watching, or you can mail it in if you feel so moved. And by doing so, you help us continue to grow this ministry even in this time. So let's take our gifts, no matter whether they're physical, digital, or just, a state of mind that we're in of gratitude. And we're just going to say, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all the good that I have, give and receive. And as we continue to think about the world and what it's going through, it's been a while since we've done the prayer of protection together. So let us do it as if we're doing it in the center and just envision the world as we say, the light of God surrounds us And we affirm for ourselves, I am the light. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love. The power of God protects us. I am the power. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well, and we affirm it with a so it is. Amen.